Apparent Winds, an adventure of a lifetime. A global expedition dedicated to collecting stories of environmental and cultural preservation while conducting marine research aboard sailing vessel Resilience.
Mexico is a massive, 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 massive country. Way bigger than I ever realized from what I learned in school books. And basically, long story short, this next part of the trip is a lot of transit. The distance from Tehuantepec, Mexico to Panama is like the same distance from the northernmost extremity of Glacier Bay National Park in Alaska to like southern Oregon, maybe even northern California. It's a really long distance, and we're covering it somewhere between 9 to 12 days. So we're rocking and rolling down the coast. We're going past these areas really just because of the wind. This time of year you have two different wind systems, Tehuantepec, which we talk about a lot, and it's pretty well known, and it's should be respected as all things in nature. And then Papa Gayo winds, and they're heavy. We started that first journey, the whole science thing was up in Baja, and then we sailed from Baja to Puerto Vallarta, where we picked up Simone, our filmmaker, and my father, and Chris and Kira actually joined back in too. We left Puerto Vallarta and went to Punta Mita, which is just outside on the end of the bay of Bahia Bandera. We had the experience of seeing these whales of a mother giving birth to a calf, seeing that sort of miracle, if you will. And then we took off. We sailed out of Banderas Bay, heading south. Something that we decided to put a fishing line in on, leaving Banderas Bay.
We didn't even get to finish throwing it out because all of a sudden there was a fish on.
And then another one hit, and I put it out, get the fish on deck. Another one hit, get it out, put the fish on deck, and it started becoming an intense situation. But we had plenty of fish, and before we even left Banderas Bay, we had to pull the line out of the water and just be done fishing because we had enough.
We open up the stomach, see what they've been eating, and record that in my notes. We've seen some really interesting stomach contents, but we tend to catch some of the bigger predatory fish, and so they'll be eating other small fish. But we also see evidence of humans. We find plastic bits in fish often enough.
We headed south and headed to a town called Parula. Just outside of that, these islands, Islas Cocinas, which were gorgeous. We had a chance to just kind of get out of any cities and be out in nature, which is sort of what we're always looking for. But again, this is a transit, we're moving fast. So this place that we could have spent a week, we had to pull up the anchor the next morning. We took off, did an overnight for Tehuantepec. Tehuantepec is this beautiful, colorful city. There's a lot of artists, there's a lot of music. We were able to drop off my father and his buddy and check out of the country, which ended up being the most god-awful situation ever.
Trying to get out of Mexico was crazy. Immigration's closed today. Guess we'll check out tomorrow. The next day comes around and we have a checklist of things to do, places to go, how to check out of this country. We get to the immigration office and they were like, I'm sorry, we can't help you. It's supposed to be a 24-hour process, so if you want to check out right now, you're gonna have to go to the airport. And we were like, okay, guess we're going to the airport. So we just kind of found this random little door that said immigration on it.
Yeah, so we had to check out of immigration. Basically, we had to check out of the country through immigration with our passports. But then we also need to go to customs and check out customs and clear out the customs like you would leaving on an airplane and sign a form saying you're not bringing anything or what have you. And then we need to go back to the port captain and check out with the port captain. And then we need to make sure we send a zarpe to our friend here before we leave. And then we can go.
It's a lot.
Where are you going to?
Panama.
We finally got checked out of the country to head south so that we can make this weather window for Tehuantepec and Papa Gayo. And we made the weather window. We went through Tehuantepec, it was glassy, it was beautiful. The stars were reflecting on the surface of the ocean in a place that's known to be one of the most violently windy, rough places in the world. Turns out between the winds coming up from Papa Gayo off the coast of Nicaragua and Costa Rica, combined with the fuel that we had and the fact that we'd have to be motoring against that wind.
We were like, okay, there's no way we're going to Puerto Madero. We're just gonna breeze on by. We'll make it happen through Papa Gayo, and then we'll continue on our way to Panama. And here we are in Puerto Madero.
So Puerto Madero we came into because we had to. The weather looked really bad ahead of us, and I had forgotten how wonderful of a place it is. It's a sleepy little rural fishing town. Really, you go to Puerto Madero to check into the country and to check out of the country. And it's right before and after these massive wind systems that people stop for. Last year when we were in Puerto Madero, we also met Miguel, who is just an absolute gem of a person. And so we called him when we got in, and he picked us up, and we went to go check out some Mayan ruins. So we left Puerto Madero, and we were planning on not stopping until we got to Panama. And that was something like a 7-day sail. That was it. It's a big passage for us. We had to go through Papa Gayo Wind. Going down this entire coast, besides the nature and besides the volcanoes and like all these things, and you know, watching out for pangas as far as fishing is concerned. The other big part of it that's a little intense is piracy, which is super real. That's like that added thing that people don't know. Like, okay, yeah, here's like this amazing transit, and here are our challenges with weather, here's what it looks like. But the other side of it is we had a couple flare guns always on the nav station and up in the cockpit, and we have a conversation about what we need to do to be prepared for pirates. And so that piracy sort of feeling, unfortunately, is always part of the reality of transiting south through this area too. So we made it through each country faster than you would think. Guatemala was a day. El Salvador and Honduras were maybe 6 hours of passing this bay that you pass those two coasts. Nicaragua was a couple days. Papa Gayos were windy and kind of rough. We kept our speed up. It was a little wet. It was a little breezy. At night we had to dodge a lot of pangas, and the radar is kind of crazy and everybody's on edge, but we made it through quickly. And we ended Papa Gayos with this awesome sort of broad reach sail from Nicaragua to Costa Rica.
When we're transiting, we just kind of have a lot of time on the boat. It's 3 hours on, 6 hours off, and so you take some of that time to sleep. We do fun things like watch movies and play a couple card games, but we also, you know, tried to stay focused and do some work. I, every single day, do my water samples. That's salinity, pH, nitrates, phosphates, and sea surface temperature. We worked on some accounting for apparent winds. That was fun. I know Trip did a lot of little fixes around the boat, always. We did a plastic survey one of the days. We pulled out this big trawl. It's very similar to a plankton trawl. And so it's designed so that it can just skim the surface. And it has this opening so that everything that goes into the opening feeds down into this little sock. The sock is made out of this very fine mesh so that water can pass through it, but anything that's larger than the mesh will stay within the sock. Maybe what you can't see with your eyes, you might be able to see if you analyze it. I went through very painstakingly with a little pair of tweezers and picked out every little tiny piece of plastic that I could find and see how much there is, what the weight is, what kind of plastics, and see what we've got. In total, we got 92 pieces of plastic in our little longer than 3 hour trawl. That's crazy. It was a really interesting area to survey as well because it was right next to a national park. So you would expect it to be very clean there. But you know, the ocean does not discriminate and the ocean is everywhere. So there's plastic. There's definitely plastic.
As you sail from Mexico all the way to Panama, that area, it really turns into this really tropical environment. So it just feels like this wild, there's like a power to it, really. It's undeveloped for the most part, which is super relieving. It feels like the Wild West, kind of. Nature and humanity both are kind of just like whew, free.
So we were in northern Panama. We had done probably 1,200 miles at this point to get to where we were, just off of Coiba. And I was thinking to myself, oh, the breeze is amazing. It's 15 knots. So I decided to pull the jib out. And as it was coming out, me and Chip hear this. We were both like, what's that? Autopilot on, walk to the front.
I came back up and it was just chaos on deck.
We have amazing sails. Their UK sails are absolutely beautiful, but some of our stitching from this core on our jib just slid right out of its pocket.
So Trip made the hard decision to cut the bottom of the foam off.
It was pretty dang windy. It was probably 20, 25 knots, and we had out this sail, and we didn't know if there were gonna be gusts coming in, and we couldn't furl in the sail. It was an intense 20 or so minutes. I was honestly a little bit worried about making it here on time. You never really want to set a schedule when it comes to sailing, but inevitably life happens and schedules happen too. And the amount of distance that we covered is insane. Coming into Panama was just this massive, we did it. Thank God. So relieving. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking coming into Panama with so many boats. The AIS looked crazy. It looked like it was malfunctioning.
This whole passage, as we kind of close up, it's a big checkpoint getting to the canal. You know, it's wildly busy with ships. They're all doing like 20 knots in that main channel coming in and out of the Gulf of Panama. And you look at the radar and it's just like leopard print on the radar, just so many boats popping up. So when you're coming to the canal, when it's nighttime and you have a ship coming at you at 20 knots, the closeness of that you're gonna pass each other is super small compared to normal, like 1/10 of a mile. You're passing massive cargo ships where you feel like you can like yell at the captain of the other ship. Definitely keeps you on your toes. It was pretty exciting. And we anchored right outside the marina that we were planning on docking.
And then prepped the boat for the Panama Canal.